Life for Albertans has changed a lot over the last couple of years. Oil prices are back up, many people are back to work, kids are back in school, and we're finally able to go out and enjoy ourselves in parks, get some much needed fresh air and exercise. However, there are many ways that life has changed that has not got back to the normal as we remembered it. Our political systems continue to change as well. Leadership roles are coming up for grabs, and the old way of doing things are not necessarily returning. So people are finding new normals. Joining me now to talk about some of the new changes Albertans are seeing is former radio personality and home media mom, social media influencer, Val Olson. Val, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thanks for having me, Hal.
Now, before we get into politics and thoughts about life here in Alberta, there's something else that's been an interesting unintended consequence with the COVID pandemic that we've seen over the past couple of years, and that Canadians are moving to other countries. Many Canadians left before the pandemic, others left before the borders closed, and they haven't returned just yet. Now, Val, you're currently in Arizona. Would you say that you're in a bit of a Canadian enclave there?
Yes, that's a great way to put it. I use the events that are happening in my community as a good gauge because people are driving and you can tell by their license plates where they're from. So you're not going to go very far. You're going to see Saskatchewan and Alberta license plates everywhere. And the locals here feel like they're as much Arizonian as they are Canadian community-wise because we're just basically a small group of like-minded people. And it really feels like that. There's not a lot of difference between Arizona and Alberta.
Now, isn't Arizona also open carry? Was that kind of a shock to your system when you went down there and everybody's got a sidearm, they've got a gun?
You know, at first it was. I was doing some shopping and, oh, wow, he's open carrying. And then I stopped and I thought about it for a second and I'm like, I feel safe because if something was to happen, I know that this man is on and prepared. Another time I had a play date at my house and mom came with the kiddos and she was open carrying as well. So that was different. You're not used to that kind of thing in Alberta, but I'm very used to it here. And honestly, it makes me feel extra safe.
Wow. Now, what do you think motivated a lot of Albertans to move to Arizona?
I would say definitely culture. And when you look at what you have for laws here in this state in particular, people are flocking to Arizona, not just from Alberta, but all parts of the country. Arizona is a real hot spot, just not for the climate, but for the freedoms. We have a very ultra conservative constitutionalist sheriff, and the sheriffs in Arizona, it's like the Wild West. So, when they say something, it sticks. And they're very much committed to working for the people. That is the mandate of their job. And so we have a real no-nonsense sheriff, and he is very freedom-minded, freedom first. And I really appreciate that. I love that.
Now, Val, I can understand snowbirds going down to Arizona when it's, minus 10 or 15 degrees or minus 20 with the snow here. But what about Arizona in the summertime where it's 100 degrees in the shade? How do you put up with that? I guess everybody's got air conditioning.
It's hot and you get climatized fast. Definitely, you get used to it. But there are a lot of Canadians that haven't left, that came here before the pandemic, and they said, we're not going back. We see the craziness that's happening in the loss of freedoms. And they say, we'll get used to the weather. It's the way of life here, the peacefulness, the pleasantries that many Canadians are choosing not to return back to Canada.
How about some of the locals where you are in Arizona? Are they okay with the Canadian invasion?
They are. They are. In fact, I had a group of elderly women. They were, in their 70s and 80s. They're very active politically. And they took it upon themselves to meet with some of their Canadian neighbors and talk about what was going on in Canada. How could they pray for them? And also saying to them, look, what's happening in your country is socialism. It's bordering on communism. You're losing your rights. We want to help you stay here. And they're very active and aggressively pursuing resources on this end, on this side of the 49th parallel, to get Canadians here permanently.
It's interesting you talk about communism and socialism. I was just in Cuba experiencing communism firsthand, and then I came back to Canada. And I guess it's all about perspective too. I saw the devastation in Cuba. I saw the beauty as well, but the suppression of the people there. And I came back to my country, and I appreciated actually what I had in my country and the freedoms that I actually enjoy here in my country compared to a lot of the people of Cuba. So I guess it's all about perspective as well. Now, there are other topics of conversation that come up, such as Alberta's statehood. What can you tell us a bit about that?
Okay, I would say that is one of the fastest growing movements with momentum. Over 10,000 members are on that page, and they have one goal in mind. They want to see Alberta join the union. And absolutely, this is a political agenda. And it's one where they are addressing very realistic reasons for Albertans to leave, separate, and become a part of the union. They're saying the economic benefits. And most of all, for me, beyond economics, what has my attention is the freedoms that you enjoy. Free enterprise. You go to the grocery store. You know, when I go to the grocery store, you should see what I can do with $20. I'm talking about butter, a pound of butter on sale for $1.99. Eggs sometimes on for 19 cents. Now, when was the last time, if ever, in Canada, you were paying 19 cents for eggs or $1.99 for a pound of butter? You know, like that's just a few of the things. But when more money stays in your pocket, it's easier to embrace what the United States is all about: freedom and free enterprise.
You know, a number of years ago as well, I had an agent down in the United States, North Carolina. He tried to get me into some of the big markets down in the States. And unfortunately, he said, yeah, it's a lot cheaper to live here, but the salaries are not as good either. Like a TV news anchor or TV news reporter, reporters were making 22,000, the anchors, and some of the big markets were only making about 40 to 50K. So I guess that's perspective as well. You have to factor that in. Now let's talk about the Trump factor. Do you think Donald Trump's time in office was a catalyst for some Canadians, conservative Canadians, heading down south?
Very much so. I've attended rallies. So I was at a local rally. Donald Trump was here in my community, and there were Canadians there, and they were being interviewed by many TV news stations and saying, "Why are you here?" And they were crying out, addressing the same things: the mandates, just the freedom-sucking initiatives happening in Canada, where our rights and freedoms are really being stripped away. And so, yeah, I definitely think, you know, Trump was a catalyst to what we're seeing now. He spoke out in support of the truckers, and who knows what's going to happen next. I think big things are coming.
So with your group in Arizona there, do you think maybe Donald Trump will be reelected as president?
There are many that are absolutely committed to seeing that. I look at it that he has empowered the people. So, regardless of did he win, did he lose, because that's still daily conversation. Many people feel he did win, and others say no, he didn't. Regardless of that, he's empowering the people. He's really leading a movement, and it has lots of momentum and lots of support from Canadians too.
Okay, home media mom, let me talk about Canadian politics with you. What's your take on the Conservative Party of Canada's leadership race right now?
I am following it very closely, and there is a lot of talk about, you know, what is going to in fact happen. A lot of people are using social media, Facebook in particular, to gauge the support levels. So you're seeing Pierre Poilievre come into your community, and it looks like there's, you know, thousands of people in the crowd, and it's meant to really influence people that, oh, this is the guy. But what I'm hearing behind the scenes is no, people know his ties. He is adamant that he's not a part of the WEF. But if you take 5 minutes and do some fact checking, and you do use some resources of independent media, like Julie Ponesse, as an example, a well-respected Canadian, she has went to work and authenticated how Pierre Poilievre was affiliated with the WEF, but the article has since been taken down. But you can still see screen captions were grabbed to show it. And he doesn't want that getting out. You know, he doesn't want people to call him the WEF candidate, but his actions show that he is very much in sync with what the WEF stands for, which is anti-freedom, and it's all about global dominance, one world government. So Pierre Poilievre has been a guy who's been there for 8 years. He is a career politician, and he went to school, got schooled to be a politician, and that's what he brings to the table. 8 years in power. And for those of you interested, he's a very, very wealthy politician. And he forgets that he works for the people, not the other way around. So I know that there are some up and comers coming in that are going to give him a run for his money when it comes to truth and justice and liberty.
Well, let's talk about some of the other candidates, such as Joseph Bourgault. He seems like an outlier, and maybe even Leslyn Lewis, who's very much a social conservative. What are your thoughts on those candidates?
Like Leslyn Lewis, she started to show us what she's about, like that. But I am actually leaning towards Joseph Bourgault. Now, he is a Saskatchewan native, born and raised in St. Brou, a very, very successful businessman who's been in the trenches for 50 plus years. So he has a lot of ideas and leadership and success. He has success under his belt. And that goes places. Theo Fleury is on his team and is by his side. And Theo Fleury is being watched. There's a lot of Americans and Canadians who follow Theo Fleury for political updates in Canada. And I've taken the time, I encourage you guys to watch the interviews that Joseph Bourgault is releasing through his social media pages. And it's incredible. He is really schooling Pierre Poilievre. And what I like about it is for the faith community who's looking for a morals-based, just community-minded, freedom lover, someone who's going to protect your freedoms. This is 100% Joseph Bourgault, and he is willing to go toe-to-toe with Pierre Poilievre on this stuff. So if we can see that he gets elected, you're going to see the next phase of this, him seeking the leadership for the Conservative Party of Canada. There will be debates, and this guy is not scared. He is not scared to address the real facts of what Canadian families are experiencing. He talks a lot about, the poverty level. And he said the poverty level is wrong. It's inadequate how the government's tax structure works. And so he is speaking the hearts and opinions of like-minded Canadians, especially the farming families, and like-minded people from across Alberta are absolutely loving his message.
We're reaching out to a lot of the CPC candidates during the leadership to try and get as many on our show as possible. Now, political pundits, Val, actually say that Pierre Poilievre stands the best chance to win the leadership, but in actually beating Justin Trudeau in an election, it's not Pierre Poilievre, but Jean Charest. What are your thoughts?
That's silly. So this is how it works, in my opinion, and in my investigative work. Basically, you're finding that liberals are coming into the Conservative Party very much like wolves in sheep's clothing. And then the media, mainstream media, not all media, but many media outlets are just pumping out propaganda saying that he's a conservative choice. But anybody that takes a look at his record knows this guy is not a conservative. And Pierre Poilievre is in that same boat. They're being compared as the same.
I think what resonates with a lot of Western Canadians as well, what Pierre Poilievre is saying right now, to eliminate the carbon tax. Hopefully not go back on his word like Erin O'Toole did, but that seems to really resonate. Now let's talk about provincial politics before we let you go. The UCP leadership review is underway, as you know, and we will know the fate of Premier Jason Kenney on May the 18th. Any thoughts on if he will survive as party leader?
I don't think he's going to survive as party leader. It's getting harder on him. You can tell just in his tone and the way he talks. And he refers to just average Canadians like you or I as being lunatics. That's his word of choice when he groups those who don't agree with them. And he's feeling really sad and sorry for himself that he, describes right now being a premier in Alberta as bone crushing. I don't feel sorry for him. I feel that he sold out Alberta's interests like all globalists do. We know what we get with him, and nobody wants him or his thug group of globalists any longer masquerading as conservatives. Just because you fly a conservative flag doesn't mean anything.
So if Kenney doesn't survive the leadership review, Val, who would you like to see take over as party leader? Maybe Finance Minister Travis Taves? Or how about even Brian Jean, the former leader of the Alberta Wildrose Party?
Well, I like Brian Jean. Brian Jean had a chance at it. I would have to sit down really and get into some deep conversations with Brian Jean before I would just, start flying the Brian Jean flag again. As for who I want, I'm going to propose this, Hal, a complete just overhaul of how the system has done it. And instead of these politicians lying, cheating, scamming, dishonest, not following through with things, I say we look at it a different way. And the people elect somebody that we want as a representative. So from a grassroots approach, we find the best of the best and we put them in office, which is the way it's supposed to be.
Val Olson is a former radio personality, and she's a social media influencer known as Home Media Mom. Thanks for joining us today from Arizona, Val.
Thanks, Hal.